Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, as I start this video, I just want to give you a quick announcement, and that has been that if you've been trying to leave comments on our YouTube page and have been unable to do so, it's because Andrew and I have been using the new Creator Studio, and one of the things we've been doing is we've been setting every video to kids safe. Turns out when you put them kids safe, it disables commenting. Now, we love your comments. We love it to know why you like the videos, why you don't like the videos, what you want to see. So please leave those comments and we'll switch that back so that you can do that. We apologize for that. Okay, the map you're looking at, National Precipitation Ranks for 2019. The United States had its second wettest year on record. Breaking that down regionally, we can see three huge regions, look at this, that all had their wettest on record. If there was a place that was dry consistently, it was the Pacific Northwest, specifically the state of Washington. But come on the other side of the mountains, the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, all having their wettest years on record, that again, January to December of 2019. In fact, the whole of the Mississippi watershed was showing up very, very wet this past year. Now, in terms of temperatures, 92nd warmest, but regionally, take a look at this. The southeast and mid-Atlantic had their warmest on record, but the north central plains, very, very cold. Breaking it down by state, this was actually one of the coldest regions globally compared to normal for all of last year, while North Carolina and Georgia, well, they set their record warmest. So this has been a year where the flow pattern has gone right between the two, just like this, and we're going to continue to see that in this near-term forecast. Well, let me just give you the numbers for December before we get into our rapid update. Fifth warmest December on record. Breaking it down by state, you can see that much of the United States saw near average to above average temperatures. And what's interesting about this was we did have some pretty serious cold snaps in December, but the warmth at the end of the month outdid all of that, okay? And precipitation, wet here in and around the Great Lakes states, getting into the northern plains, wet down here in the southeast. But let's talk about what's going on in the southern states and get right here to this map. Now, this was released a week ago. You're going to get a brand new one of these later on today. I encourage you to Google Drought Monitor and see the newest one. What I'm concerned about is the drought that is here and here. We need to watch this all winter long because if the drought in the southern plains expands into spring and gets here into the central plains, that is something that is a precursor for potentially causing for quite a bit of heat come summer in this region. Now, I'm just putting a bug in your ear about it. I do anticipate seeing a lot of change in the drought monitor here. And to explain that, let's now do our rapid update. So, over the next 5 days, what are we anticipating? Well, still that broad shield of heaviest rainfall is in this position. About the only change we've seen in the modeling is that this shoved this a little bit farther to the north and west with time, okay? Speaking of north and west, the Pacific Northwest is still under the gun of the flow here that's coming around the big ridge that's sitting right offshore and just funneling in moisture here to the Pacific Northwest where they do desperately need it. In fact, when I show you this animation in a few moments, you're going to basically see no break at all in the precipitation in Oregon, Washington, and parts of Idaho. It will eventually slide down into Southern California, but I'll show you that update in a few minutes. Our severe weather threat on Friday is here. Saturday is here. We're going to be talking about that in more detail in a few moments. Now, I want to bring something to your attention. In the latest model runs, we have been seeing something we were thinking about earlier in the week, and that was enough warm air overrunning a shallow layer of cold air at the surface, sub-freezing air. So this map is showing you that over the next 72 hours, stretching from parts of Missouri through parts of Iowa, but really northern Illinois, and then the southern part of Michigan here, having the greatest risk of accumulating some freezing rain. And even in the day today, we're going to be watching northern Wisconsin getting up into the UP as having a chance for getting a light glazing of some sleet or freezing rain as well. Now, this is the frozen side of this. Let's get over and talk about snowfall. This is the latest update, again, through the next 5 days, showing us where we're anticipating the heaviest snowfall. It is in the same corridor we've been identifying all week long. We do see that through parts of Michigan and getting back into Wisconsin and northern Illinois, we do have the potential for picking up potentially 6+ inches of snowfall. Now, there's some trickiness to that forecast, and a lot of it has to do with the potential for some sleet and freezing rain early that the model may be calling as snow in this area. I'll show you what I mean in a few moments. But the heaviest axis of snow comes right back here through Missouri, Kansas, and northern Oklahoma. Meanwhile, in the Pacific Northwest, big snowfalls happening in the Cascade Mountains where we desperately need it. Now I'm going to take my drawings off here and I'm going to show you this. The most recent update of the GFS model has finally come into alignment with the European. So European here, GFS there. You can see the amounts are slightly different, but overall we're looking for that corridor of heaviest snow. It seems to be that if you are south and east of Interstate 55, right in through here, that's going to be the breakoff in Illinois. And we're going to watch where that's going to be right here in southern Michigan as well. I think that's going to be the trickiest region to forecast with this upcoming snow. Now, if we go to the 7 days following that, so this upcoming Tuesday to the next Tuesday, we continue to see the same thing. Northwest, strong subtropical jet, Ohio River Valley. Those are the areas that are targeted for the wettest conditions into week 2. All right, so we're going to continue to see the same pattern going in the same direction. And it's just detailed right here. Strong winds coming off of Japan, splitting right here around a ridge in the Gulf of Alaska, comes together in the northwest. Strong subtropical jet stream flow here targets the Ohio River Valley. I mean, that's the setup we're going to see this through the next 8 to 10 days. It's been pretty well advertised in the models. Temperatures. We're watching the cold air that has been in Alaska finally slide through parts of British Columbia and Alberta and over into Saskatchewan. This will be invading into the north central part of the United States with some bitterly cold air, not only over the next 5 days, but days 5 through 10. Meanwhile, the southeast and the east continue to see much above average temperatures. And I'm going to show you the latest update here. This is now the new 11 to 15 day time period. Now, yesterday afternoon's model runs were allowing for this colder air to really push much farther to the south and to the east with time. But today's model runs, well, back that off a little bit. So this is still going to be a tricky forecast for this area. And I'm going to stick with what I put in yesterday's long-range outlook in that any cold air that comes into, well, let's narrow this down a little bit, into this area over the next 15 to 20 days, I think is going to be relatively limited in its duration. And that's been kind of the main story that we've been holding here. The north central plains, bitterly cold winter-like conditions. I mean, deep winter-like conditions. Okay, that's your rapid update. Let's get into some of the details. From Synoptic Meteorology perspective, this is a beautiful setup, okay? The trough is here. We've got the jet stream diving into it. This is the current forecast. Take a look at this. Ready? This is where it's going to be tomorrow. Deep trough here. Look at this. The flow splits as it comes out. We get great upper level divergence and great upper level diffluence, which means right in through here we're going to have excellent support for the development of a low. And by the time we get out to Saturday, that same thing continues. Our shortwave ends up here. Jet streak. I mean, this is about as good as it gets. Meanwhile, the northwest just keeps taking that stronger flow on just like that. So this is the setup. Here are the details. We've expanded the region over which we are anticipating some strong to severe storms. It's now including parts of southern Missouri, a big chunk here of Oklahoma, but then our target area has always been this region here. So the Storm Prediction Center, beginning tomorrow, watching out for that area. We could possibly hear thunder in this entire corridor. As we stretch this out to Saturday, we're now watching a much larger region of enhanced risk for severe weather here in parts of Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana. And this is due to just this very vigorous system that's coming through. I started this video work this morning about 2 a.m. and the National Weather Service must be awake with me because they have slowly expanded the flood watch area that you see here. In addition to that, we do have some light freezing rain moving through this region today. There will be strong winds with this entire system, and you're going to see that in a few moments here. And like we said, the northwest continues to just get pounded with a lot of strong onshore flow out of the northwest. So that's your main all hazards weather map for early this morning. Okay, here are the details. You're going to watch a few things with me. Watch the first system come up through here later on today, putting in some ice. Wide open Gulf of Mexico transport pulling in the moisture. The Pacific Northwest unrelenting in terms of precipitation coming through. That's the setup. Let's play it out. I'm going to pause this. This is early this morning. We have a weak low pressure system right here in western Iowa. By 10 a.m., there could be some very light freezing rain and sleet moving through this corridor. Watch out for it. Meanwhile, all along the wide open kind of road here of moisture coming from Texas clear up in Illinois, widespread showers. Keep an eye out on that early this morning. Now that light freezing rain moves in through Wisconsin and the UP of Michigan. And then you see that by this afternoon, the light snow, light freezing rain event is relatively gone. Now, you noticed all of the onshore flow coming into the Pacific Northwest. A lot of snow on our mountains here, little snow squalls here. But watch, if I step you back again, in the Central Valley of California, the San Joaquin Valley, the Sacramento Valley, the northern part of it, early this morning through midday, we do have some precip sneaking through there. Okay, so I'm talking about right in there. No big snow here for the mountains, just a few inches. Okay, now come over to the midsection of the United States. This is now Thursday at 11 p.m., getting into Friday 6 a.m. Our temperature boundary is here. The developing low is going to ride that temperature boundary, and this is what begins the heavy rainfall that begins to spread right through this area. It starts early on Friday morning and just continues throughout the day on Friday. Later in the day, we see a few things. This will more than likely be what we call a QLCS, a quasi-linear convective system. Now, that's nerd speak for we may see some discrete cells out ahead of what will be possibly a pretty strong squall line. The wind shear profile suggests that. And that's going to be barreling through by Friday night through eastern Oklahoma and eastern Texas, and then come slamming into, look at this, into Arkansas and Louisiana. Meanwhile, as the warm air runs to the north, that's where we get the potential for some freezing rain in through here, with the snow all the way on the backside. By the way, don't forget, the Northwest is getting pounded again at this time period. And here it goes as we progress out into the early morning hours on Saturday. Okay, that's a lot of detail, but we got to talk about it. Let's now switch over to the European model to see how the rest of this system evolves. Pause it right there because we've seen up to Saturday morning. Okay, the European model Saturday morning into Saturday afternoon and evening. Where we're going to be watching the transition from sleet, freezing rain to snow will be right in through here with the heavy snows on the backside. Extremely windy conditions. This is going to be a raw Saturday for this area. The severe weather threat is all through this corridor. I'm kind of covering here with the mouse, and this is all being fed on this big high pressure cell pushing that moisture in. All right. So system number one then moves off into parts of southeastern Canada by Sunday morning, bringing its cold front through the southeast by that time period. But if things don't slow down, you see the high pressure cell sitting over here stays put, and we get this lingering frontal boundary from that first system that sits right here over the southeast, such that by Monday, getting into Tuesday, widespread showers in this area. Again, this whole time, we keep seeing Northern California through Oregon and Washington getting system after system coming through. So Tuesday morning, still heavy rainfall here. Weak little clipper system comes out of the Canadian prairies into the north central United States. More rain for Northern California, Oregon, Washington, and Idaho getting snow. So if we keep playing this out to next Wednesday, our next potential big system is going to be a week from now, Thursday morning. We're going to watch this one very carefully. At this point, the details are a bit sketchy, but I just want you to let you know the pattern we have been discussing isn't changing. It's one where systems are coming in like this. Look at this. Next Thursday, hammering Oregon and Northern California. And the systems lift out of the southern plains and they show up here. That is the name of the game, at least the next 7 to 10 days, okay? So, getting into some of the details on the snow, I do believe that the amounts are a bit exaggerated here. And the reason why I say that is because in both models, the European on the right, the GFS on the left, I think the models are not picking up properly on the transition from the freezing rain and sleet over to the snow. And therefore, the 10-to-1 ratio might be too high for this area. But still, we identify this corridor as having the best potential for picking up some snow out of this next system. Now, probability of grabbing at least 3 inches, well, it's in this main area, but with the clipper systems that are coming in, we do want to watch the Canadian prairies for picking up quite a bit of snow as well. And finally, there is next week the potential for a few systems to move through, very weak, but move through the north central plains, bringing in some snow there as well. But I'm going to show you this map. This is the probability of getting over 3 feet of snow through the next 10 days. And the Cascade Mountains desperately need this because right now, Oregon, Washington, and Idaho are still showing up with a below average, well below average, basin average snow water content. The Sierra Nevada are doing well. Much of the Intermountain West is doing well. It's this area here, which you saw earlier in this video, which has been dry for over a year, needs to get that snowpack up, and we're going to be helping that out a lot over the next 10 days. Now, temperatures, before we get to an international forecast. It's split. The country is split. We are going to see brutally cold air in Montana and the Dakotas, and much above average temperatures in the south. As I play this one forward, this is Thursday's highs. Look at this. This is now Friday's high temperatures. So you can see the frontal boundary on Friday. That's the front over which this low pressure system is going to run. Northern side of it, we may struggle on Friday to get high temperatures out of the single digits or maybe even above 0. Meanwhile, southern Texas to Florida sees temperatures in the 80s, all the way up into the Ohio River Valley, 50s and 60s. As you can imagine, by the time I get into Saturday, that front advances. There's Saturday's highs, Sunday's highs. Now we're starting to cool things off here, but it doesn't last too long. There's Monday's highs. Getting into Tuesday, we're back up in the 40s and 50s into the eastern Corn Belt, while the north central plains hanging on to brutally cold conditions here. Southeast is warm. So if we just show you this again, next 5 days, you can see the divide across the country. Days 5 through 10, same thing. And days 11 through 15. So we really see a pretty consistent picture here. I made a case yesterday that I don't think that the Southeast gets a break from the above average conditions, and I think any shot at cold air is very short-lived. I went over here and I made a list of my reasons as to why, and I think you can go back and watch that video and you'll really see my main reasoning as to why I think that's the case. Now, with the Mad-Julian oscillation coming out over here into phases 4, 5, and 6, one of the things that could undo my forecast is if the MJO, again a tropical feature, doesn't curl back down here into null phase and instead does this. My forecast for the end of January would be completely upset if that happens, okay? So watch that carefully with me. And it's not as though the probability is so low. It could, of course, happen. So we're going to watch it carefully to see if the MJO does that. Remember, these are the cold phases of the MJO for much of the United States, and these are the warm phases. Okay. So next thing. Here's something else that's developed in the longer range models. We still have the screaming jet stream here coming off of Japan. That's this arrow. The split flow now bringing much above average temperatures potentially into Alaska while the flow dips here to the south. What I'm going to be watching most carefully for the end of December is if this ridge builds into place here. That would indicate finally a changeover from our very positive North Atlantic oscillation to something at least closer to 0, maybe even negative. And that would allow for some colder air to return to the northeastern part of the United States. We got to watch it carefully, but these are the two things that could possibly change the long-range update I provided yesterday. All right, let's finish this up with a bit of international forecast. A couple things I want you to watch. I've circled them, and I put an arrow on one specific region. Let's watch Australia first. We actually see over here, again, focus over on this side, we have had recently gotten some precipitation over the drought-stricken area with all those fires. And in fact, in the last 24 hours, quite a bit of thunderstorm activity right in through here. Now, this is going to make for some very rough flash flooding conditions when the rain does come in. So I just want to give you an update there. Let's now go back and watch what's going on in South America. Throughout much of Brazil's monsoonal region, just a lot of hit or miss showers and storms. You do notice in that place that I've put with the arrow, southern Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, that particular region missed out on a lot of rainfall recently. But at the very end of this animation, do notice how Argentina got some thunderstorms last night, which are proving to be very beneficial to their crops. So, a couple things I'm watching. Looking here at the Vegetation Health Index compared to a year ago, Brazil's eastern growing regions still showing up looking worse than they did a year ago. We had some hot and dry conditions in Rio Grande do Sul, certainly impacting full season corn. In Argentina, remember this is the corridor over which we have the most productive ground. They are right now not looking that bad compared to a year ago. It's been the northern, southern, and parts of their western growing areas that have looked a little bit worse than a year ago. So let's keep that in mind. Moving forward in the forecast, we're going to stop it right here. The next week, this is very good for harvesting soybeans in Mato Grosso. And also some beneficial rains down here in southern Brazil and Argentina. So the next week looks pretty good here in terms of weather conditions. Getting out into week 2, we notice wetter than average conditions showing up in this corridor. This could help slow down the harvest of soybeans in this area while we dry out once again in Argentina and southern Brazil. So it appears that the Mad-Julian oscillation is in control of the monsoon here. We need to watch it very carefully as it transitions. Okay, that was a lot, but we had a lot to cover, and I hope you found this useful and informative. I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Thank you.